Hi everyone, welcome to the 5th episode of the Upfront with Rue Stewart podcast. Today I wanted to speak about some experiences I've had with equity and inclusion workshops. I don't know that much about those. I had an opportunity to be a part of two of them, and so I wanted to attend. One was I'm going to the Harvard Extension School, and then there's a Harvard Graduate School, which is very prestigious and really difficult to get into. And I went to one there, and it was an equity and inclusion chairperson of the school, and actually it ended up being a really good experience. What they did was, it was a webinar. They had lots of opportunities for us to talk about the questions they had and the different things. So one of the things they did at the beginning, they wanted everyone to tell what their pronouns were. And I don't feel comfortable doing that. I mean, other people do, and I don't. Whatever opinion I have, it doesn't really matter about that. I just don't feel comfortable doing that. So I didn't do that. So then, when they handed a page out with a bunch of privileges, and there were about 40 of them there. The first three were white, male, and straight, and then we had an opportunity to look it over and discuss it. And one thing was good about this, because we all had a chance to talk, and then actually the meeting turned into something probably different than it meant to be at the beginning. But I just said, of course I identify as white, identify as male, and I also identify as heterosexual. But I said, if we really look at a broader concept, not really narrow this so much, to some people, being African American is a privilege. And to some people, if you look at reality, a larger context, to some people, being a female is a privilege. And, we got in a conversation, and one guy who was one of the leaders at the graduate school was from Pakistan or maybe India, some country. He said, well, over in my country, I'm a part of a caste, in that we are we are a higher ruling than many people, and people look to me as having a privilege. And then, it got into some other conversations. People talked about education as a privilege. Lots of us, even going to college, or maybe even going to high school, to different people. And especially, I am an attorney, but those people are at the Harvard Graduate School, so that's a privilege to many people. And it turned into something where, all of us in our lives in different areas have privileges that we could use to help our communities. And that's sort of what we turned into. And I talked about different stigmas that I have, and things that aren't really seen as privileges, like having mental illness, a serious mental illness, that stigma of that, but also having being in 12-step groups, and also with having been incarcerated. So actually it sort of turned away. I think it was really supposed to be some kind of narrow discussion about limiting to certain topics, but it became an open forum, and actually it was really a good experience. And then the next time I went to one, it was through the Bar Association, for being a lawyer, and I wanted to be a part of that. And this wasn't very open, where we had a lot of chances to share our own experiences. It was sort of limited, I think, to what they wanted to speak about, which was more about being African American or being a person of color, and how viewpoints need to change to be more accepting of that. And there were some different experiences that were shared of how people. There was an African American lady and people didn't recognize her as being an attorney. And I have different views. I do feel that is I do feel that in some way, that the way, the way we perceive one another from TV and different media outlets, that we could not see someone filling the same shoes as another person, maybe because of the color of their skin. So I understand that, I also wanted to share one of my experiences. I was on a condo board, and I know people always share wild stories about being on condo boards, but this was a wild place to be at. And what happened was I had got a peace order filed against me that I didn't know anything about. I was home, not working that day, with jeans on and probably a t-shirt, and I found out that I had a peace order against me. And so I went over to the courthouse, which is like 3 blocks from my house, and it was a very very bad experience, actually. Actually, I went in, I had to check in and everything. Usually I dress up with a suit on, and people, I guess, recognize me as an attorney, I guess, the way I look. But it was an African American sheriff, and I was just saying, well, all I'm trying to do is, after I was in line, people were asking me what I was trying to do, and I was just saying, well, I'm just trying to get a copy of this peace order, to be served or something. And it was really demeaning and degrading that he wouldn't even let me talk. He was like, just be quiet, just stand here. I'm not totally thin-skinned and not totally take everything personal, even though I can at times. I just wanted to share that. It was really a degrading experience. I guess he put me in the category of being some kind of domestic violence abuser or some criminal, and I was just on a condo board, and it was a very illegitimate peace order filed against me that had no credit, that was thrown out, and I was just going to the court on a day off just to pick up the peace order and to get served. And he saw me in one light, and even though he was African American and we were in the legal system, he treated me like I was nobody and wouldn't give me a chance to talk. And it was it's a bigger, larger so I could hear, and I know that there's different power structures in different places, and I do know that different challenges for different people of color, people of education levels, and different things. But it's not all one-sided. There's a lot of gray areas here, and lots of people in those positions use their authority, I don't care what color your skin is or not, and really degrade people just because they feel they have a sense of power over them. And a lot of these problems that we're having, and we've always had, there's been slavery throughout time, from probably when things got started to Egypt and all kinds of places, Rome and everywhere, until there is today. There was slavery in African countries, and actually it's very true that Africans sold the Africans to the slave trade to be brought over to America, and that's just reality. So it's horrific, it's terrible that human beings would treat others that way, but it's been going on throughout time, and it's been many places and many people of many colors and many nationalities and many cultures, but we do that to one another. We can, even though it's ridiculous, because of greed, selfishness, and a sense of power, and that underlies all that. So, and one thing about gender, there was a young boy in the news recently who had a t-shirt that says there's only one gender. I think he got into whole kinds of problems at school and everything because he wore a t-shirt that says there's only one gender. And there are lots of other people who wear t-shirts or express themselves saying things like there's two genders. I mean, there's many genders. I guess he said there was only two genders. I apologize for that. But many people say that there's many genders, and there's no backlash against them. I guess for him that was hate speech to say that there's only two genders. But it's good for us all to be involved in this conversation. I understand that people who maybe don't recognize themselves as being either gender, it's difficult and it's challenging, and I know that other people may not be very accepting of the way they identify themselves, and that there's been challenges that way. But we need to step out of that as well, and we all need to be compassionate for one another, very loving and caring and accepting of one another. But also in that, we need to all have a voice in this conversation. That is true, but it doesn't come to a place where just those sentiments override what all of us have viewpoints about that, and us what we all value as being harmonious for the best way for us all to live. Now, for people to have viewpoints that there's more than two genders, or that they can be binary, they can be in a combination of the two genders or whatever, I mean, that's their truth, that's their what they feel that their truth is, and what they feel their identity is, and they have all right to feel that way, and as long as they're not hurting themselves or someone else, and they have all right to be treated fairly. But my experience is that I identify as male, and not lots of people do, and I have very clear thoughts that we all have different truths. Some people, it's a philosophical debate. I have a truth. I could tell you what the truth is, and what I think the truth is a lot different than what other people think the truth is. But I do feel there's reality, and if I was born male, and I have biologically am male, and my wife was born female, and biologically she's female. And there's reality where if you jump off a cliff and you're 300 feet in the air, you're gonna not go well when you hit the blacktop or the gravel, and if you touch a hot stove, it's not gonna go well. There's reality, and then there's truth. I mean, we all have different truths, but there's reality too. The reality was I was born male, and biologically I'm male. Now of course, life is very complicated. Some people were born with different both biological things, but that's a different conversation for a different day. But when it comes to gender, I was born male, and biologically I'm a male, and my wife once again was born female. It's very obvious that she is a female biologically, but our society somehow has like 6'1" guys swimming with women, and that's accepted. And I guess people would feel that them not being able, they're transgender, them not being able, or whatever they are, binary, them not being able to do that is unfair and not compassionate and bad for their mental health. But what that's doing is taking taking that person's truth, that limited person's truth, and you're superseding that over 38,000 women who, or I don't know what the exact figure are, that are NCAA Division 1, 2, and 3 swimmers in the United States and worldwide, and you're going to have this one person who was born biologically male, who's stronger and has different chromosomes and genes that allow them to be stronger in different things because they're male, swim with women, and that is not fair. That has gone over. That's not fair. That's not fair. And there's a lot of things going back and forth about what's fair and what's not fair. But we have to draw lines too. And once again, it's very disturbed by our government really playing a large part of pushing these agenda and causing more problems. And so I really appreciate you listening to this 5th episode of the Upfront with Ruth Stewart podcast, and thanks for listening, and I'll have another podcast soon. Thank you.